Hi everybody and welcome to my channel, Bilal Reads. So for May, I had a super productive reading month. I was very surprised because I thought I would read maybe 2 to 3 books, but I ended up reading 8. And so when I got back from college, I knew I wanted to read again. So the first thing I did was I went to my local library on Monday when it opened. And I was really surprised because I guess I haven't been to my library in a while, and they had a lot of books there that I wanted to read. So this is just a few that I got from there. These are 7. I read all of these. And so this, I guess, is going to be a spoiler-free review of them and what I thought, because this was a very mixed bag of books, because some I really liked and some I really hated. So let's get into it. This is one book that I had never heard of. It's called Here We Are Now by Jasmine Warga. And I went in with very little expectations for it because it was like a very short contemporary read, and I don't really like contemporary books that much. And this book, I really was not a fan of it. I thought it was far too short. So this book is about this girl named Talia Sahar Abdullah, and one thing I really liked was that she was Middle Eastern because I feel like that adds to diversity, which is important. And this book, is about her story, and she was raised by her single mother, and then when she was 13, she realizes that this super famous rock star is her dad, and she realizes it because they look similar, and that's how she knows it. And then one day he just shows up at her door, and that's not a spoiler, that's literally on the inside of the book. And so this entire book is, I thought it was going to be about her coming to terms with her biracial identity, understanding that she can be both Middle Eastern and white and still a part of America. And it wasn't really about that at all. A lot of it was her whining about how her best friend and her are growing apart, which is what's going to happen when you're in high school. I was just not really, I didn't really like her. And then there's also parts of it that I wish were expanded upon more, because her mother is an artist. And then she the big theme of her artwork is regret, because she had to give up parts of her Middle Eastern identity in order to assimilate. But that's mentioned in a sentence, and it's never mentioned again. And then the way it ends there's romance involved in it, and I don't mind romance in my books, but this book didn't need it at all. But yeah, I just wasn't a really big fan of this book. It just let me down. Another book that I absolutely disliked is Sweet Bitter. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. I hadn't heard of it until I saw a trailer for this on the TV, because it was becoming a TV show on the Stars Network. And I also watched the first episode after I read this book, and I will say they are both suck. They're both trash. So, non-spoiler review about this book is, it's basically an adult contemporary where this young 21-year-old girl named Tess moves to New York City and finds a job being a backwaiter at New York City's finest restaurant. And it's about her experiences there as she works there for an entire year. And I think it's based on the author's real life, because the author was also a waitress in a restaurant in New York City. And it was just really boring. I feel like the characters weren't really fleshed out. It was also problematic because her love interest is a misogynist. And so I don't recommend this book. I also hated the TV show. I was so bored for the first episode. It was only 20 minutes. And it was the worst 20 minutes of my life. And then another book I read was Heartless by Marrissa Meyer. And this is a prequel to Alice in Wonderland, because it describes the Red Queen and how she becomes the Red Queen. And so basically another spoiler-free synopsis / review of it is that it's about this girl named Catherine who becomes the Red Queen. And it's about how she goes from this really nice, sweet girl whose biggest dream is to open a pastry shop into the Red Queen that we know. And it's all about a boy. She falls in love with a boy, and that's why she goes crazy and becomes evil, because she can't get the boy. And I did not like that. She went from 0 to 180 really fast. She saw him at first sight. It was at love at first sight. And Alice in Wonderland is supposed to be whimsical, kind of creepy, and just a fun place. I think I haven't read the original. All I've seen is the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland, and that's what I took away from it. This book was none of that. It was really boring. And it's also, I don't blame the book. I blame myself, because the author, Marrissa Meyer, she did the Lunar Chronicles, which are really big, but I hated them. I read the first 2. And I disliked them. I thought they were really boring. And then I read her newest book, Renegades, which I also hated. And then I also hated this book. So I guess I just can never read another Marrissa Meyer book again. And I feel really mean for saying it. But yeah, I just don't like her. I also don't like her writing style or the books she writes. So yeah, another disappointment that I'm going to talk about. It's like a bridge between the books that I didn't like to the books I really liked. Because this next book, I've seen people on BookTube talking about it. I think A Clockwork Reader was the one who I saw. And it's The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. But I really wanted to like this book. I went in going thinking I would absolutely love it. Because it's about a half Chinese, half white girl whose mother killed herself. Come to terms with a lot about her family identity. And so the point of this book is basically when her mom kills herself, she decides to go to Taiwan to visit her maternal grandparents who she has never talked to. I think this one gets into magical realism in some parts of it. It involves a bird, like a magical bird, who comes in at random points. And I don't know, this is so weird because I wanted to like it. I wanted to love it, but it was just okay. Like, I guess it didn't meet my expectation, that's why I didn't really enjoy it that much. Because I went in with really high hopes, I heard really good things. And it, like, was fine. Like, I'd say you could read it if you wanted something to read, but it wasn't my favorite. It just also wasn't my least favorite like the other ones were. And then, I guess, another bridge book. I actually bought this one. I'm not just a broke bitch. I always swear I'm done reading this damn series. It's the Court of Thorns and Roses books. I have read all 3 of them. I read this one in like 3 days. And I'm just gonna say I have no opinion on these series. These are objectively really bad. They're really problematic, and for some reason I just can't help but love them because I read this 3rd book in super fast, and this is thick. I don't know if y'all can see it, but this is like, I think it's almost 700 pages. And it was supposed to be the last one, but now she's expanding the series, and guess who will probably read the rest of them? Me. But I don't know, this book also, I'm just gonna say I have no opinion on it because it was like the other 2, and I'm pretty sure you have all heard about how problematic this book is, how boring the first one was, but I'm still here, so I guess Sarah J. Maas, I stan you, even though I don't want to, but I really do. And then the next 3 books I'm going to talk about were books that were my absolute favorite. I loved all 3 of these books. One book I know a lot of people have been talking about on BookTube, and the other 2 I haven't heard anything about, so we're just going to get into it. This book snatched my wig, it ripped it off, and then flayed my hair follicles, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. The book to not meet my expectations, and this book met them and surpassed them because it was really, really good. And I also bought it on my Kindle because it was on sale for $2, so I now own this book also. And this book was just really well done. So it's about this bisexual son of an earl named Henry Montague. And he's in love with his best friend Percy. And Percy, his sister Felicity, and their tutor goes on a tour of Europe, which is something they did back in the day, where he would just go and explore the major cities of Europe for an entire year. Which somebody who studied abroad, like, that's not an opportunity you should be wasting. And that's like one of the flaws I had with this book was how he whined a lot about it. But in his defense, as this book went on, you realize that, like, he starts off as this person who just jokes around. He's kind of like a frat boy kind of character, and they all have really good character growth. This book is also really diverse because his best friend Percy is black. His sister Felicity wants to be a doctor. And he's bisexual. Each time people do historical fiction, historical romance, it's always whitewashed. It's like minorities didn't exist back then. They just have been a recent development. And this book doesn't fall into any of those tropes. It's really well done. It's also kind of thick. I think it was like almost 500 pages, but it goes by really fast. I think this is the first book. There's a second book coming out in October that focuses on his sister's exploits. I'm trying to keep it vague so I don't spoil anything. But yeah, I really recommend this book. I really loved it. And then the next book I read was a romance book, and it's The Game of Love and Death by Martha Brockenbrough. And this book was really, really good. I just got it because it was like it was shorter compared to the other books I read. I think it was like a little over 300 pages, and it went by really fast. And this book also was super diverse. It was also really, really good. It kind of reminded me of the night circus, only because there's like an aspect of a game being played, because it's literally called the game of love and death. And in this book, love and death are like characters. They're like real immortal beings, deities almost, who exist in this world. And they play this game where love and death both pick a person, people who fall in love. And the point of the game is to see whether or not they will pick each other, or like will death win, because death has always won. And now this one is set in pre-World War II. It's set around in the 1930s, late 1930s. And it's set in Seattle, which I thought was super unique, because I feel like when people talk about pre-World War II, they focus on like New York City or Europe. And it's about Henry, who is a white, very, I want to say upper class rich white boy, and he's a baseball player. He also works for a newspaper. And then on the other side of the street is Vera, who's black. She's African American. Her biggest dream is to become a pilot. But this book was really well done. I thought it was super cute. It was super fast. It went by really fast for me. I really liked all the characters. It was also really well done. There's also a bisexual character in it. And it was just really well done. I really liked it, and I also recommend this book. And then the final book I read, the 8th one, was Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. And this book is very new. I think it came out like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, because I saw it at Books A Million. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend my own money on it, because it seemed kind of problematic. It's about the Civil War and zombies. And it's about how the dead start to rise during the battles of Gettysburg, and how that just makes everybody forget about slavery and focus on the rising dead. And I thought it would be kind of problematic, because I didn't want it to take away from how brutal slavery was. But this book really surprised me, because it was really well done. It was mainly a critique of America's colonialism and imperialism and the slavery aspect of it. And it also focused on Native American re-education. I'm trying to keep it vague, because all of these are major plot points of the book. And so our main character in this book is Jane McNee, and she's super interesting, because I also think she's bisexual. There's a one she's just bi-curious, but she's definitely on the spectrum. And it's about how she attends this Preston Schools for Combat in Baltimore, where she basically has to learn how to defend herself against shamblers, because she wants to become an attendant, which is basically somebody who caters to the rich white folk of Baltimore and protects them at their own risk. So this school mainly is to train her. I think she's been there for 3 or 4 years. But yeah, so it's about the dead in, like, I guess post-Civil War America, like zombies and shit. And I think it was really well done. There's like it went in the complete opposite direction of what I thought it would be, because when I first heard about it, all I was told was that it was the Civil War and zombies. So I thought it would be like this little girl during the Civil War having to choose between fighting for emancipation or fighting for zombies, and that's absolutely not what this book is about. She isn't really given a choice in whether she has to fight zombies or not. She's forced to, because of the Negro and Native Re-Education Act. And this book has a lot of microaggressions in it that she experiences, so that's another warning I'm gonna say. But I really recommend it, because it went in the exact opposite direction what I thought it would go. The 8 books I read for May, and it was a mixed bag, but I got some really good books out of it. So yeah, I'll post individual book reviews soon. So see you next time.